Mr. Johns for 6 minutes, please.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all the witnesses for your testimony. Ms. MacEwan, in your opening statements, you mentioned that the investor state dispute settlement provisions in relation to vaccine production. Can you explain to the committee more fully what the TRIPS waiver is and how it demonstrates exactly how dangerous the ISDS provisions are?
Yes, thank you for the question. So TRIPS is a treaty on intellectual property rights at the World Trade Organization, and there's a TRIPS council that meets regularly, and they have in the past actually allowed waivers of intellectual property in certain circumstances. And so in the middle of the pandemic, India and South Africa, who have both been badly hit by COVID-19, proposed to this committee at the World Trade Organization that they suspend the intellectual property rules to allow them to produce vaccines, generic versions of vaccines, because they have generic manufacturers there where they could do that, and that would allow their population to be vaccinated more quickly, which actually protects global health. But they also wanted to be able to manufacture parts for ventilators, PPE, and other things that might have intellectual property restrictions on them. Now, what Canada and other rich countries have said in this council is that, well, prove to us that this is delaying your response. We think that you can resolve this on a case-by-case basis. We think that these huge global profitable corporations that have never seen more money come into their bank accounts, we think that right now they're probably going to be in a good mood and they'll let you do this. We don't have to go to this extreme of lifting the whole waiver, of lifting this whole provision. And the countries came back and they said, here's an example of where we've been trying to do this and where it's been stalled and where it's taking us a really long time. And it's hurting us, where there are people dying in our country because we're not able to provide affordable, the stuff that you need to do the testing. We're not able to provide these things in an affordable basis because of this intellectual property restriction that you're refusing to lift on our behalf. And so Canada has still, there was another meeting, Canada has still said, well, no, we think that you're probably fine, that we don't need to do this. And so we think that in the interest of global public health, just in the interest of human rights and basic decency, that in an emergency like this pandemic, it makes sense to lift that intellectual property rule that says these companies get to negotiate how much they can be paid. It's a little bit like Uber drivers, right? When the surge pricing. But what's happening is in the absence of this waiver, the global north is protected, we're vaccinated, but you're going to keep seeing more variants be produced in South Africa, in India. You're going to see more people in the global south dying from COVID-19 because we did not act swiftly and allow these things to be produced in a generic way that would be affordable for these countries.
I want to drill down a little more on this. Maybe you can talk to the committee about how many countries have signed the waiver, how many groups have been pushing the Canadian government to sign onto the waiver. When is the next opportunity for the Canadian government to sign onto that waiver at the WTO? And has the Canadian government responded to any of your concerns around signing onto the waiver? Maybe you can also speak, there's a lot of public money going in right now to the crisis and how responsible this is right now.
Yes, so you raise a good point. The major vaccines were actually funded mostly through public money. The Moderna vaccine, the innovation behind the vaccine was created by scientists, publicly funded scientists in the United States, and they have the patent for it. But still, somehow, Moderna and the other companies have a right to license the end vaccine. The trials were funded by public money, and Moderna, which is completely publicly funded, like everything about Moderna's vaccine actually was funded by public dollars. They had the highest price for their vaccine, which is completely unacceptable, and they're looking at making a huge profit from this vaccine. But yes, the majority of countries have signed on to the waiver. Canada, the US, the UK, we're dragging our feet. We haven't said no, but we've said, look, we need more evidence that this is causing a problem. We've written letters. So CUPE has written letters, the Canadian Union of Public Employees, the Canadian Labour Caucus, many of our members have written letters. The Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International, there are Public Services International, there are global campaigns pushing governments to make this decision that would save lives. And we've heard no response. So what the Trade Justice Network did, what I did, was I started a petition with the House of Commons. There's an official e-petition. And then because we have over 500 signatures already, the petition will close at the end of March and the government will have to respond to our petition. So we are expecting that we will get a response from the Government of Canada at that time, but we've had no response to date from them.
Thank you very